Hi everybody, welcome to the Ego-Friendly Banter. This video is going to be about the enlightened activities of all Buddhas. Since this series is in context of Taras, of course we'll share about Taras who perform these activities. But as always, the main point is how we can embody the compassion because of which these activities take place. What we can do to use this quote unquote framework in our life and make better choices, maybe more informed choices or enlightened choices, and basically recognize which Tara or deity we can connect with or ask for help whenever we are faced with certain challenges, which also means aligning ourselves to their frequency. Doesn't mean appeasement, it just means that using various means, whichever suits you well, to raise your own vibration. Okay. Sometimes we are not even aware of the deities that we have to connect with or energies that we can learn from. Simply reading books about those particular deities or elevated beings or enlightened beings can help you transcend certain frequencies. So you understand what I mean. And there also will be a couple of statutory warnings that I want to give as we move on. These are the four enlightened activities that you're seeing in front of you. I've tried to make it as practical, as understandable as possible, and would like to avoid all jargon, so that no one gets confused. So these four activities, they describe the ways in which compassion actually moves in the world. It moves through you, through your neighbors, through heroism of, let's say, ordinary beings, right? In Vajrayana Buddhism, especially since it flourished in Tibet, right? So Tibetan Buddhism, teachers describe enlightened action as flowing in four great streams. These streams are sometimes called four karmas or activity or action, to put it simply. This describes how awakened energy or enlightened energy, an energy that has realized itself, realized its true nature, it serves beings, serves all of us, both human and non-human beings. But the most important thing that we have to understand is that these are not separate schools of thought or not contradictory approaches, right? These are voices of same compassion, same underlying compassion, and they are expressed by the same beings or same deities depending upon the situation. For example, if there's a good doctor, let's say, that doctor knows that sometimes you need a sedative or a medicine, right? Which puts you to sleep, which is a painkiller or something like that. And sometimes you need a surgery. Sometimes you might need multivitamins, and sometimes you might need a referral to another doctor or a right specialist, or maybe you have to enter a support group. So the medicine that you will get will match the illness that you have, and similarly, these activities match the need. And also, they correspond to four fundamental ways in which we can relate to our own minds. I hope that's making sense to you. Let's think about a problem that you face, whether it's anxiety or a difficult relationship, a creative block, a destructive habit. There are only four ways that you can approach it. You can calm it down, right, which is pacifying. You can build resources and deal with it, which is increasing. You can draw support, seek help from your friends, align the forces which are at play, even opposing forces. That's magnetizing, which means using those forces to your advantage. Or you can cut through it forcefully, which is subduing. But most of us, we get stuck because we use one or at max two of these approaches. We try to calm everything down, when we maybe actually need to cut that thing off, or we try to force our way through certain things, through certain relationships, through career, when maybe we need to attract better opportunities, attract support, attract help, or different opportunities from the ones which are visible. So these activities can help us in diagnosing the kind of help that we need. Understanding these activities, I mean. I'll explain all of these activities in practical and daily living context very soon, but try to keep this in mind, okay? And in some advanced teachings, there's a fifth activity. It's called all accomplishing activity. Again, it's not separate, it's not a different school of thought or category. It's a synthesis of all four activities which are in front of you. It's spontaneous and effortless activity of a fully enlightened being who encompasses all four actions simultaneously, which means green Tara. Green Tara embodies this synthesis. When you look at her, when you understand her, no, you'll realize that she is the swift one, the one who responds with whatever activity is needed, in that moment, befitting to that particular moment. But you'll observe that how most of us, yes, we embody all these activities at different points in our lives, but the goal is actually to be aware of when to use which activity or when to call which Tara for what kind of help. And as we study this, you'll observe that dogs and babies, especially puppies or even adult dogs, they embody all these activities beautifully. No, maybe that is why they're most connected. No, they all of them are Buddhas because there's no conditioning. There's zero idea of right and wrong, nothing at all. No, just pure presence. So the first activity is pacifying, calming, purifying. This is the healing activity. The color is white, and white like fresh snow or moonlight that you see on the sea or a lake. No, it is the stillness, the calm after the storm. This activity is used to calm sickness, obstacles, negative emotions, heal conflict or difficult circumstances in the family, in career, everywhere. Even in your practice, it helps in purifying your negative karma and also create a peaceful environment for practice. It's basically like priming the surface, or rather using sandpaper to clean the surface. Even that. This is all about bringing things back to balance. Whenever there is anything that is out of balance, within or without, it creates friction, it creates problem. So everything has to be in balance. Whenever masculine energy increases, there might be agitation, there might be anger, or constant work, and thus burnout. If there's too much feminine energy, then one might become extremely inert. Like they might start loving resting too much. They might not want to work at all, right? So everything has to be in balance. So when there's too much heat, inflammation, agitation, suffering, whether literal fever or emotional agitation, within or without, pacifying cools it down. Great masters or teachers say that before you build anything, you need to calm the chaos. You need to clear the environment. You need to remove obstructions, at least the ones which are very visible, to see clearly. Before you can see clearly, by the way, you need to stop shaking. For example, if you get into spiritual practice, very deep spiritual practice, you'll have to work on your nervous system first with a lot of breath work, pranayam, and then you'll have to clean your chakras. But if you try to work on your chakras without cleaning your nervous system, without calming yourself, grounding yourself, you'll face problems. You'll become ungrounded, and then you'll also attract negativity, negative beings from all around you, anxiety, tension, stress, even psychosis. So it's very dangerous, right? Everybody who's been on the spiritual path, you have to calm yourself first. So you have to cleanse yourself. You have to clean your impurities first, and only then get into deeper mantra chanting or other purification practices. This is pre-purification, and then there's purification to prevent yourself from basically short circuiting. Or let's say there's another example. You can't really understand a teaching on stress or anger when you are stressed or angry. As simple as that. You can understand your problem only when you're calm, when you are resting, when you're in pause, when you are deliberately thinking about that problem, and then also thinking about its solution, not just the problem itself. So, whenever someone is in acute emotional crisis or overwhelm, that is when pacification is most needed. Inflammation, as I said, physical or in relationships, there's too much fights in your relationships, then this is the activity that is needed, right? When there's a system, let's say family, community, organization, which has become very reactive. Every time you go into that group or community, there's fight. This is the activity that's needed. Or when there's suffering that's so raw and there's too much vulnerability, right? And you can't tell people about these spiritual things or end up looking like a fool or a very apathetic asshole. No, because if someone is going through loss, trauma, shock, the last thing that you want to do is talk about spirituality to them. Don't do that. Never do that. It's very disrespectful, I think, to somebody else's suffering, and it's also a very weird kind of gaslighting. It's yeah, it's pathological altruism. Yeah, no more preaching. Anyway, pacifying activity is, just being there, being available, and telling maybe somebody else that it is fine to be in a place where they are, but things will be better. No, don't be toxically positive again, especially with someone who's facing immediate aftermath of any kind of trauma, shock, loss. Never ever do that. Never do that. But there are a couple of examples that you can think about. A doctor who is healing a patient, applying an ointment on the wound. That is pacifying activity. A mediator who's stopping a fight, who has no stakes, except for maybe letting the peace prevail. A firefighter extinguishing a blaze. A mother soothing a crying child. Or mm, a friend listening without judgment. Deep breathing when you are anxious. A walk in nature to clear your mind. Or even taking a warm bath after a hard day. What else? Maybe a leader, right? A leader who's trying to calm a panicked crowd. These are all forms of pacifying. Actions which reduce your agitation and restore balance. Actions which lead to non reactivity or responsiveness, which increase responsiveness within you, which calm down your nervous system, get you out of survival mode. So you'll have to see that whenever your mind is racing and you're unconsciously, like you're not aware, but then you're taking a deep breath, that is pacifying happening by itself within you. When you let go of a grudge, when you forgive yourself or others for a mistake, when there's anger rising, but you pause before speaking, when you're caught in anxiety or spiral, downward spiral, and you place your hand on your heart and you tell yourself, it's okay, Priyanka, it's okay for things to go as they are going, it's okay. That is pacifying. When you sit in meditation and simply watch your thoughts come and go, that's also pacifying. Mhm. But also keep in mind that it doesn't push down or deny any kind of pain. That's gaslighting, that's bypassing. That's also one of the most common problems everyone on spiritual path faces: bypassing. Especially people who come to understand about non-duality or spirituality before the groundwork, before trying to understand their trauma, before understanding their nervous system, how their body holds the pain and the trauma and all these things. And then they say, oh, karma is happening to the illusion that you have made with your mind and all. Huh? But the pain still exists. This happened with me because I was constantly telling myself, oh, Priyanka, all of this is an illusion. No, there's no Priyanka that exists and all of that. But Priyanka was aching. And it's only when I realized that I need to do this groundwork first. I need to heal my patterns first, see my habits, go back to the problems or the roots of the problems, solve them first, and only then understand all of these big concepts. We don't have to bypass being a human. It's the I think the most disrespectful thing that we do to ourselves. And then, as I said, when we project all of that into others as well, it's very dangerous, very dangerous. So never do that. And when you realize this, that you have to become non-reactive, sometimes you can start overusing pacifying. We try to calm everything, we try to avoid all conflict, we try to smooth over every difficulty. Maybe those difficulties are arising for you to cut that person off from your life, cut that habit off, cut that thought pattern off, right? We become very conflict avoidant, we stop confronting our problems. Why? Because we tell ourselves, oh, we have to pacify everything, we have to not react to everything. And then we become these very fake kind of peacekeepers at any cost. Again, very disrespectful to ourselves. We use pacifying to bypass our problems instead of addressing them. And we do not have to do that. Tara never does that. So now, these are the three deities that you can connect with. And since all my understanding, all my information, everything is informed by all cultures, all traditions, and everything, but still, most of my understanding comes from Hinduism and Buddhism. So you'll find Hindu references everywhere, right, in my videos, and even in the way that I talk. It's right there. So two of them throughout the video will be Buddhist and one will be Hindu. And yeah, all these deities, whoever is mentioned in this video, are the ones I know for sure can help you in these activities. And they embody these activities so beautifully that the moment you align yourself to these frequencies, they'll instantly, in a snap, help you, right? If now in your life you recognize this need for pacifying activity, if your life feels chaotic or your nervous system is dysregulated, because that's the first thing that you have to cater to when you are on a spiritual path, or let's say if you're in a conflict with your mother, with your father, with your partner, with your investor, anybody, call out White Tara, call out to her. She'll help you. She'll help pacify those fights and then create an environment where you can thrive. And also, I think it's very important to say, sometimes we think about, spiritual path as something where you have to give away everything. I don't think so either. I think as long as you are in the world, you have to have everything, and sometimes all your base needs, right, since you are a normal human being, they have to be met for you to be on spiritual path. A poor person who cannot feed themselves, they don't even care about all this. They don't care about healing. They don't have time to grieve. They don't have time to fall into depression. They don't have time for anything really, because they are so caught up in feeding themselves. And even if they have depression, they never really know, because they don't have time for diagnosis. In Hindi, there's a line from a particular poem or a story that I read. It said, जब तक भूख है प्यास है यही इतिहास है, रख कांधे पे हल चल खेत की ओर चल जो हुआ सो हुआ, which means as long as you have hunger, as long as you have a stomach, this is the history. Whatever is happening in the present moment, this is the history. No, you don't have time to think about history. Basically, go towards the field and go plow the field. No, basically, whatever happened happened. You don't have time for grieving, for being sad, for pondering over the happenings of life. No, be very grateful that you have time to connect with these energies, to understand all these things, right? I don't even know why, why I gave that discourse and everything, but I hope it might be for somebody. Yeah, so you have to work on your nervous system. You have to get it out of survival mode for any kind of spiritual understanding, for any kind of experience, let's say. You have to get out of survival mode. You have to get out of um, similar thought patterns, thinking loops, reactive modes. You have to be aware of all your reactions. Get rid of all the pain that your body has. Basically, create conditions for yourself to practice spirituality, practice dharma, like to be on spiritual path actively. Let's put it that way. That's the best way to put it. So White Tara, she is embodiment of pacifying. As I said, her white body, it radiates this cooling, healing energy. She holds a vase, and that vase has amrit, nectar of immortality, which soothes all suffering. Similarly, there's medicine Buddha, which is next, and then there's lovely Dharvantari. Dhanvantari and medicine Buddha also hold bowls or vases which have nectar, soothing nectars which give immortality. Dhanvantari is also called the god of medicine, along with Ashwini Kumars. They are physicians to the gods. Dhanvantari is the one because of which all medicines came. So he emerged from ocean during Samudra Manthan. In previous video, I shared how Tara also manifested for the sake of Lord Shiva during Samudra Manthan, the churning of ocean, and that churning was done for Dhanvantari to come. He had the nectar because of which that entire churning was done, so that he could come and gods could drink the elixir. So before we move on, let's take a moment now. Collect your breath. Take a deep breath in and out. You can note it down, or maybe you can think about it. Pause the video and then think about it. Where in your life do you need pacifying? Is there a relationship that needs calming? Is there an internal voice which needs to be told to calm down? Is there an internal voice which is very agitated, very sad, angry, which needs soothing? Is there any situation in your life where you are holding tension which could be released at this very moment? call out to any of them, to three of them, or to nobody. Your wish. Put your hand on your heart. Breathe deeply and simply say, may this be calmed. May this be soothed. Amen. May peace arise within me. Amen. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti. That's what this karma means. Right? Now we move on to the next one. We've got enriching. Poshta karma, which means the yellow or gold activity, and basically growing the good that already exists. Also means nourishing, increasing, flourishing, activity of enriching, basically expanding, which is beneficial. Pacifying addresses excess, right? And then removes what is harmful. Increasing activity or enriching activity, it addresses the deficiency and then builds it. It addresses the lack within you, wherever that is, within and without. Once your obstacles are pacified, we need to grow and strengthen what is good and alive. If you have a lot of hate within you, once that is pacified, or anger within you, once that is pacified, what do you need to increase? Your generosity, forgiveness, love, right? If you, let's say, are facing poverty, right? If causes which are causing poverty are pacified, what do you need? You need to build circumstances, like you need circumstances around you which help you in growing a business, growing the money that you already have, growing your investments, savings, right? So whether it's a seed of talent or recovery from anything, basically, or maybe you might be beginning a practice or building a new community, all of these need precise conditions in which they can grow and thrive. And that is what this activity means: increasing your lifespan, wisdom, merit, enhancing your prosperity, positive circumstances around you, increasing your good qualities, whatever good quality you already have. It builds resources for practice and for your life. For you to sit every day in meditation, you need to be better off than a lot, as I said. If you have a good family, they are healthy, happy, you have a business that's working well, you'll be stress free. You'll have much less stress than a lot of people, which is why the quality of your meditation will also be better. Of course, with constant practice, right? If pacifying stops the bleeding, increasing activity builds your strength. So, doctor put bandage on your wounds, and now he's giving you multivitamins to increase your strength, to heal your wound better. It can happen around you in various ways. Let's say if there's a farmer who is looking after his crops are increasing every day. A teacher who's educating the students, the wisdom increases with every class, right? A mentor who's developing a talent, or a gardener who is fertilizing the plants, a community who's trying to build infrastructure. Let's say if there was an earthquake, a person who saves money for the future, which will give in trusts and everything, an artist who is practicing their craft daily, an athlete who's trying to improve their muscle builds every single day. Let's say if you start using your intuition every day, intuition is also a muscle, it'll start increasing. A person who's reading to their child, the child becomes more eloquent, more intelligent, right? I hope you're getting what I mean. A company that is investing in research, that will have many benefits. All of these are increasing. These are actions which are building, growing, and enhancing what already exists. What's beautiful, what's nice, what's good for propagation and for cultivation of dharma. And what do you mean by dharma? Again, going back to our true nature and making sure that everybody around us also benefits from that enlightenment, from the seeds of that enlightenment. But we have to focus on ourselves, right? We are not bodhisattvas yet, and we don't have to bring in that ego of being one. No, we just have to be as compassionate as we can be, but also not bring that doership within us, that we are enlightening somebody, we are telling something to somebody. And within you can see whenever you practice gratitude and it increases. I think it's written in Bible, or maybe I don't know. There was this book called Magic. The lady who wrote secret. Like, she was the one, I think, who wrote Magic as well. And it said that whoever has this will have more, and whoever doesn't have this will lose whatever they have. And everybody keeps on thinking that might be money or something like that, but it's not. It's gratitude. Whoever has gratitude will have more reasons to pay gratitude, and whoever doesn't feel grateful, they'll lose all reasons to be grateful. I think that's what it meant. So that is what this is, one activity of enrichment. When you learn a new skill, when you meditate every day, when you do some kriya every day, you feel your stability grow. No, that is enrichment. When you forgive someone and suddenly feel your heart expand, your capacity to love expand. When you read a book, it stretches your mind. That's enrichment. When you exercise and your body is strengthening, that's enrichment. Right? I hope I made my point clear. So when you notice what's simply right in your life and you start counting those blessings, it increases them. This is my belief. No, I strongly believe it. Focusing too much on lack brings even more lack, whether it's sadness, whether it's anxiety, or whatever. So you'll have to look into it if you have those patterns. You just have to build your capacity for more gratitude, more happiness, more abundance. You can use affirmations or subliminals. You can use Abraham Hicks rampages to help you. I did share the link a couple of videos ago, but I will share that again today. No? That is enrichment. That is enriching activity. Your scarcity, depletion, stagnation, all of it can be directly addressed with this. If you don't have enough energy, enough resources, enough prana, because of, let's say, some trauma that you faced, enough love, you can increase whatever you need. And the shadow side, by the way, is to overuse this increasing. Then you become accumulators, hoarders, never satisfied, very greedy. That's also pointless. Maybe more money, more possessions, more achievements whenever you start getting them. Then you'll start taking everything for granted and also be more stuck in the cycle of samsara. So I don't think I need to mention that. You don't have to lose sight of the fact that sometimes you need to let go. Okay? Sometimes letting go is the most enriching thing that you can do to yourself. Always remember that increasing without wisdom, whenever you get a lot of money or anything without wisdom, without humility to acknowledge and appreciate it, it becomes greed. Right? So balance it with other activities. Now we have the deities to deal with depletion, stagnancy, or stuckness of any kind. We have yellow Tara or golden Tara. She's the Tara who increases your merit and prosperity. And similarly, we have the Hindu counterpart, who is Ma Lakshmi, and she's the goddess of abundance, as we all know. And then in the center, we have Zambala, the Buddhist god of wealth. And in his hand, if you zoom in, you'll see there's a mongoose. And that mongoose, it vomits jewels. But the thing is that wealth is never just external, right? As we shared, anything that helps you to grow and thrive, anything that helps you to be more aligned with your most prosperous self, yeah, to realize your true nature, that is enriching activity. Okay, before we move on, let's take a moment again. Take a deep breath in and out. Now ask yourself, where in your life do you need increasing? Is there a skill that you want to develop? Is there a relationship that you want to deepen? Is there a quality, let's say patience or compassion, generosity, that you want to strengthen? Is there a resource that you need more of? Maybe books or money? Anything. Seek help from any of them, or maybe none of them, or any other that you know about. Now place your hand on your heart. Breathe deeply. And simply say, may this grow. May this flourish. May I grow. May I flourish. May abundance arise within and without. Amen. 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 Now we come to third enlightened activity, which is Vashya, the activity of magnetizing, inspiring, creating resonance, alignment, connection. Magnetizing draws together. It builds the community. Its function is to create the conditions in which people, energies, possibilities, they flow towards each other. and in ways which are mutually beneficial. And also remember that it is never ever manipulation. Never. Making this distinction is very crucial, very important. Manipulation works against someone else's free will. You are not exploiting someone else's weakness. You are not creating artificial desire. You're not creating obsessions. You're not triggering obsessions. Some people do that. It's highest level of negative karmas. No, uh, I don't want to talk about it, but anyway, you don't want to do anything by concealing truth. These are enlightened activities, which means that they are in the purest state. So the truth is always there. It works by revealing the truth, by expressing what is genuine, what is resonating with what people already know or already long for, what they need in their lives. As I said, it has to be mutually beneficial. So magnetizing is about alignment, alignment with best opportunities in your life, in simple words. Brings right people, right conditions, and it helps you to live your dharma. And the color of this activity is red, the color of passion, of life force, of heart. There's a beautiful example of bone chain Buddha. It's not available too much on internet. I think it's in the books. So in Chinese Buddhism, it is said that there was a prostitute, and she never let any man go without satisfying his desire. Whenever anybody came to her, she satisfied their desires. And then she was very young and she passed away. And there was this monk, or an enlightened Buddha again, who went there. He saw her grave and started bowing down to it. People came, people said, "Oh my god, this was a prostitute. Why are you bowing down to her?" He said, "No, this was not a prostitute, but this was a Buddha." Right? And then they dug that grave out, they opened it, and there was bone chain. Bone chain, as in all the bones, they were connected to each other like a chain. And then the relics were taken out, a temple was made at that place, and then that Buddha, bone chain Buddha, was prayed to. But what are we learning here? That was magnetizing. She was using her own sacred energy, like sacral chakras energy, which is sexual energy, because that is all we have, right? She was using that prana to push people towards enlightenment. It is said that whenever someone had any kind of intercourse with her, they lost all desire, all lust, not desire, but all lust. And they were immediately pushed towards enlightenment, towards the spiritual path. So that was a Buddha, right? She was using this magnetizing activity, no matter how it seems in front, to push people towards enlightenment. And when I talk about these things, even in the next activity, there are a couple of things. I hope that people who have sense of discernment are listening to these videos. These were Buddhas. They have no sense of doership. Things are happening the way they are happening because that is how they were supposed to happen. They are not claiming the ownership. They are not saying that they are the ones doing it. As long as there's body consciousness, as long as there's an awareness that a person exists, you have to see that video of, I believe, Swadhyay to understand what I'm saying. Okay. Here it was her purpose, but there was no sense of doership. There was no entitlement with the body. There was no sense of doing. No, very sensitive. But you have to understand what I'm saying, right? Here, and also just to make sure that it is not taken out of context. If someone is doing something out of necessity, out of need, but at the same time they have the sense of doership, they're enjoying whatever they're doing, and there's lust that exists, within anyone, right? They are in the cycle of samsara, if not realized the nature. Maybe this woman, this person who was a prostitute, since they are a Buddha, right? It means that yes, their karma was to be played out like this. They had to pay back their karma in this way. They had to do, like, they had to live their life in this way. But there was an awareness of their true nature, which is why their entire energy was used up very quickly. And then, of course, maybe given to other people. They say that any kind of sexual intercourse, any kind of sexual encounter, it's like, as I've shared before, it's like plugging yourself into a computer. You don't know what kind of viruses you are taking in. So one has to be very, very careful about giving or taking somebody else's sexual energy. It's very, very dangerous. let alone having unprotected sex and all those things. They say that this energy doesn't leave you for about a year if you are not very conscious of clearing it. Sometimes you might have observed that if someone has, let's say, sexual encounters with someone random, that person takes away their energy, and this person who's not aware, maybe they were spiritual or maybe they were very rich, they lose all their money, they lose all um, all the abundance that they have. But the other person who's now not even in their life because it was a casual hookup, they suddenly grow in their life. So they took that energy, right? I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. But now coming to the activity again, all of this is my own understanding. So yeah, be discerning. So magnetizing, it means attracting and harmonizing. It attracts teachers, students, beneficial circumstances to propagate, to understand, to live your dharma, to realize your true nature, right? Or to draw in the resources that are needed for spiritual development. It brings together whatever belongs together, whether it's two people, whoever. It harmonizes relationships. It influences the situations through compassion rather than force, through love rather than force. If there's, let's say, a very charismatic leader that you have in your country who is inspiring followers at all times, let's say if there's an actor that everybody likes, that is magnetizing activity. And if that actor starts meditating, so many of his followers will start meditating. We've got this person called Virat Kohli. He's a cricketer in India. He has so many followers, like so many people who love him. He became very spiritual, and so many of his followers, and then of course so many other people also, could find about this very particular teacher that we have in India. He's very open-minded, very brilliant teacher of dharma. Because of this person. What is that? That's magnetizing activity. It has taken so many people towards dharma. A teacher who's drawing students to wisdom, an artist whose work evokes different kinds of emotions, attracts a lot of attention, and then puts you in a meditative state. One artist that I can think of, it's Alex Gray. His art, it always drives me crazy. It's beautiful, beautiful. It always puts me in a trance. That is magnetizing activity. A person who's falling in love, when inspiration has gone dry and your aliveness needs to be rekindled in life, when you need to feel um, beautiful, that is magnetizing. Your community, a community that comes together for a particular cause, a business that's attracting customers, a friend who brings people together, a musician whose music you love and then go into trance with, a speaker who leaves this audience spellbound. All of these, a healer who draws people to practice. All of that is magnetizing. All actions which attract, align, and harmonize. But all of that is for the purpose of awakening. That is very important to understand. And it is always happening within yourself as well. When you set an intention and then you watch opportunities appear, when you align your actions with your values, what you say, that is magnetizing. When you truly want, when you have this clarity about what you want, and then suddenly that thing feels drawn towards you. When you practice loving kindness, and then suddenly everyone starts appreciating you, loving you as well. Perform Ho'oponopono, and then you'll see that relationship shift. That's also magnetizing. The moment you um, speak your truth, and you see a lot of other people are also understanding it, that is magnetizing. So there are so many examples. I can just go on and on, right? That is magnetizing. It's just creating that coherence within your conscious and subconscious mind, between your um, intention and action, between you and the world, between this realm and the subtle realms, all of that. So to put it simply, it addresses your isolation, your disconnection, feeling not aligned, misalignment with the world, not being able to form connections. If you feel alone and nothing is working, or if you're pushing against the current, if you don't like the job that you are in, you want better opportunities, then this is what you need. Okay, and never overuse it. Don't become manipulative. Don't try to control people or outcomes. Never do that. Never use your charm, or never increase your charm, let's say, to get what you want. Okay, allow natural law of attraction to work so that it forms a feedback loop, so that at least you know what is going on in your subconscious mind, because that is what you're attracting. And if you use this charm or mantras or whatever to attract what you want, you might regret later. Okay, so be absolutely clear in what kind of karma you're creating. And to be very honest, true magnetizing, true attraction, I think, comes when someone is authentic. I don't think there's anything that's more sexy than that. It's the most beautiful thing about everybody. So whenever someone is authentic, they, I think, vibrate highest. If you recognize that you need magnetizing activity, if you feel isolated, you need support, you need people to support you, you need better opportunities, you want to align conflicting forces, then call on Red Tara. No? Also, Tara Kurukulla, she's my spiritual bestie. I love her so much. She is red, four-armed goddess. She holds this beautiful bow, an arrow. It's made of flowers. In Hinduism, we have Kamdev. He's sort of like her. His bow and arrow is also made of flowers and everything. So her arrows, they don't wound, right? They pierce your heart with love, and then it draws beings towards enlightenment. And also, she has many other functions. Okay, uh, she is one of the most beloved magnetizing deities. She also clears your ego and everything. But when we talk about Taras in detail, we'll talk about her. So I love her so much. Then we have Lord Krishna. He's the poster boy of magnetism. We all know he's even all of other avatars of the same God, which is Lord Vishnu. They are not as magnetic as him. Some might be wrathful, some might be there are different kinds. But Lord Krishna is called to be the perfect manifestation. He's very famous for playing the flute. His flute magnetizes all beings. It draws love from all people, especially gopis. It drew those gopis from their homes. So Krishna is one deity, which increases the charm. And then I shared about Bonchin Buddha, right? Before we move on, let's do the practical exercise again. Take a moment now. Take a deep breath in and out. Where in your life do you need magnetizing? Is there a relationship that needs harmonizing? Is there an opportunity that you want to attract? Is there a teacher or a mentor that you need to find? Or a part of yourself that feels disconnected from rest of the world, that feels very isolated? Hmm? Think of it. Put your hand on your heart now. Breathe deeply and simply say, may what belongs together come together. May I attract what I need. May I attract what is best for me to be on my path. And may this alignment arise naturally. Amen. 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 Now we come to the most misunderstood activity, which is subduing. It is also called subjugating or wrathful activity. The color is black or dark blue, and you can think of the color of smoke cloud or night sky, of real depths. Okay, and it is misunderstood because it does not mean harming anybody out of anger. It does not mean being angry at others, and even if you've realized who you are, if you think that you're enlightened and all of that, doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that you can't do that. Okay, it's about forceful and compassionate destruction of forces that cannot be tamed through, let's say, peaceful means, which can't be tamed through calm means, pacifying activities, right? Destroying your ignorance, ego clinging, severing negative attachments that you have, whether it's ghost attachments around you or maybe attachments that you have with other people, all of that, which binds you to suffering. You this activity also protects you from harm, as I said. So it removes negative attachments to you, within and without. It's also about cutting through obstacles which threaten your spiritual progress, even if it might be painful for you, because that is necessary. Think of it as a surgery. If a limb becomes dangerous, a compassionate doctor, he doesn't hesitate to amputate that limb, cut that limb. That cutting is done out of love to protect the patient, not out of cruelty. And I also believe that it is for basically purifying the karma. So if you're aware, then that Milarepa, so many of Indian saints, so many Hindu saints also, um, and even if you're aware of Tilopa and Naropa, no, how were they treated by their gurus? Tilopa hit Naropa with a sandal, and that is what led to enlightenment for Naropa. No, Naropa and Milarepa, both of them, and they were asked to do many hard tasks by their gurus. So they were beaten also. They were asked to, yeah, you can read about it all over internet. No, they were very tough, extreme penances, but all of it was being done to purify their karmas and to clean their ego, to cleanse their ego. All those beatings and physically dangerous stuff that they were being asked to do. But this is very outward and external, and they were enlightened beings. Okay, we are talking about enlightened beings here again as bone chain Buddha. You don't have to apply all of that into your life because we are in no position to do it. There's nothing else I can say, by the way. I really hope that people who are discerning are listening to this. Play stupid games and then win stupid prizes. So don't do that. This activity is never about directing your anger or hate or harm at people. If there's a terrorist in your country, the government might have to use this means, out of compassion for others. Why? To protect people. So you can understand what I'm saying. If you have any negative pattern, any like, let's say, anger, resentment, desire to win, or punish somebody, and you are using it to direct all of this anger, hate, etc. at other person, then it is negative karma, because this expression, this activity is always fierce. But it is protective compassion. It's a kind of parent, let's say, who pulls the child away from traffic. They know that the child will cry, or who gives the child a very bitter medicine. They know that the child will cry, but they still do it. Why? Because it is good for the child. They don't do it out of hate or malice. Okay? And if you are feeling very satisfied with any kind of pain or disruption that you've caused by subduing action, no, it's a warning sign. Don't do that. Don't do that. This activity, true subduing activity, it leaves the practitioner thinking, feeling the weight and the cost of their intervention. There's no pleasure, there's no victory in this. No? It's about, let's say, there are a couple of examples that you can think of. For example, if there's a surgeon who's removing a tumor, or a therapist, who's telling the client a painful truth which the client is not ready to see, a parent who's setting a boundary with a child, a nation that is defending itself against invasion, a person who's leaving an abusive relationship, a community that's standing up to injustice, all of that. No, um, let's say an intervention for someone who has addiction. It might be painful. All of this might be painful for someone, but it is necessary. Okay, a teacher who's, let's say, giving some tough love to a student, and if you've grown up in South Asia, you know how all of us get tough love from the parents. When I went to Scotland, I think the only culture shock the only culture shock that I had was about how gentle the parents were with the kids. Chinese, Pakistani, Indian moms, they will never understand that kind of gentleness that I'm talking about. We used to share a lot of memes, me and my friends. Anyway, so I was giving examples, right? A judge who's passing a sentence, let's say it's a death sentence, right? A fire break that is cut to stop a wildfire. All of these, they are subduing actions. Actions that are used to cut, to remove, to protect through force. When force is extremely important, you know, for enlightenment, to understand your nature again, to propagate dharma, to understand your dharma, to live your dharma. So, next time when you recognize a destructive habit within yourself and decide to stop, that is subduing. When you when you face a painful truth that you've been avoiding, no, your delusions, that is subduing. When you say no to something or someone that's harming you, when you cut ties with the toxic person, when you sit with difficult emotions instead of simply distracting yourself, when you confront your shadow, that is the point of this entire channel. When you meditate on impermanence, and feel your attachment loosen, that is subduing. When you forgive yourself, when you let go of your shame, all of this, all of this pattern interruption, it is subduing. When a lady who is constantly been facing domestic violence decides to call in police, that's subduing. That's this wrathful activity. It's done out of compassion for oneself, for one's children, whoever. No, it's radical intervention. It's needed when all gentler approaches they fail. It's forcefulness. It's forcefulness. And it is required to break an addiction. It's required to leave an abusive situation. It's required to confront um, a long denied truth. Okay? And the shadow, as I shared before, it can become very harsh, very judgmental, very aggressive, angry. You use all your force when patience maybe could work better, when you could be more responsive and not reactive. So don't end up cutting everything that you can heal. When you end up cutting a lot of relationships, even when there was no need, and then in turn become isolated and later realize that you did wrong. All of that. Okay. Never mistake your cruelty for compassion. Cruelty is not compassion. Wrathful compassion is when you know that it is for mutual benefit. Okay, for the other person and also for yourself. Now we come to the deities. These are Black Tara, Mahakal, and Kali. When you need subduing activity, if you're stuck in patterns, as I said, or you want to cut through denial, if you're constantly chasing someone since years, but there's no progress in your relationship, maybe you need to cut that attachment. You need fierce protection. Call in Black Tara. So she has all weapons to destroy all enemies. Not people, but inner enemies, of course, of greed, hatred, ignorance. And then eventually, once the inner patterns change, inner patterns clear out, they'll also clear the external manifestations of it. You can also call on Mahakal, as I said. He dances on corpses, the corpses of ego, like Shiva in Hinduism. Then there's Kali, wrathful again, but very compassionate for her devotees, for her children. She cuts off heads of demons. No, these demons, which are always within ourselves, our poverty, our lack, lust, everything. All these demons, they represent our own negative patterns. So take their help. Now, before we move on, let's do the exercise again. Take a moment now. Take a deep breath in and out. Where in your life do you need subduing? Is there a habit that you need to break? Is there a truth that you need to face? That you know but you are not ready to face? Is there a boundary that you need to set? Is there something that you need to cut loose, maybe? Put your hand on your heart. Breathe deeply. And simply say, may what needs to end, end. May what needs to be cut, be cut. May I have the courage to face what I've been avoiding. Amen. 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 Now, before I go, I would just like to share this simple practice with you, which you can do anytime that you're facing a challenge. Ask yourself, what does this situation actually need? That's all. Does it need pacifying, which means calming, soothing, healing? Does it need increasing? More resources, more strength, more cultivation, more ideas? Magnetizing, attracting right people, right forces, aligning conflicting forces, harmonizing relationships. What does it need? Or does it need subduing, cutting through, setting boundaries, facing hard truths? Even if it's, let's say, a project in your office, you can see, do you need better ideas? Do you need a promotion? Is there too much fight in your group, in your team? Do you need to set boundaries with your boss? Check with yourself, okay? If your inner critic is raging, very angry at you, you will need pacifying. If you feel very depleted and hopeless, you'll need increasing. If you feel disconnected from your purpose, you'll need magnetizing. And then I repeat, if you are stuck in denial, you need subduing. Of chasing after everything, which is not permanent. And ultimately, as you practice, you will start to integrate all of these. You'll become like Green Tara, the one who responds. No? She doesn't react, she responds with whatever is needed, spontaneously, effortlessly, with love. That's the goal. Okay, that's enlightenment in action. As always, if you liked the video, share it with everyone who might benefit from it. Thank you.